Hello, everybody. Hey, Freddie, would you do me a favor? Give me some good advice on, managing security metrics.
Oh yeah, talk to your audience. Know what good looks like to them in terms of metrics. Insulate them from the problems.
Ask them what they think is a good idea. All right, James, give me some bad idea on managing security metrics.
Some bad advice would be ignoring your own confirmation bias. Human beings tend to prefer outcomes that are favorable to them. And when we're measuring things, we should be cognizant of that. And if that is skewing our interpretation of metrics in one way or the other.
Oh, I like that. All right, Freddie, do one better than that. Give me some worse advice.
Worst advice? Damn, get your logs and call it a call it a metric. I guess that could be a worse advice.
Your log is the metric?
Oh yeah, why not, right? It's already logging.
Let's do this. All right, let's start a show.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Welcome, everybody, to Super Cyber Friday. My name is David Spark, and today's topic is hacking metrics that matter. Yes, the matter is the key part of this discussion. And that is an hour of critical thinking about finding what you need to measure to improve your security program. Our guests today, you just saw them, it's James Kilgore, who's the Senior Manager, Information Security over at Wide Orbit, and Federico, but he also goes by Freddie Hacamine. He's a technology evangelist over at Axonius. All right, Axonius is our sponsor, and we greatly appreciate them supporting the CISO series and today's Super Cyber Friday as well. All right, lots of different ways to participate. For those of you who've been here many times before, you know them all. I won't go through them all, but I will just highlight what our bad idea and our 10% better tip is. The bad idea is, what is the worst cybersecurity metric? I'm sure you're going to come up with some creative ideas there. But we also want your advice on how to improve security metrics or any usage of security metrics for that matter as well. All right, our schedule, classic schedule we've done before. We'll do our bad ideas, 10%. We'll play the public interest. We'll do the Department of Yes. We'll have our last question advice. And then we will do our meetup. And if you have not joined our meetups before, the after the show meetups, they're a lot of fun. We get to have face-to-face time with everybody who's there. So please stick around that. You'll get to probably meet one of the new members of the CISO series community. In fact, his name is Josh. And Josh, I don't know if you've spoken up in the chat room, but please speak up in the chat room and say hello. He's a new employee, new member of the CISO series family as well. All right. I do also want to mention that next week, we have another show called Hacking the Modern Audit, an hour of critical thinking about how your security program changes when the entry barrier goes away. That link to register for that event is at the bottom of the screen. That means at any time you can register for next week's event and not go out of this at all whatsoever. So please do that. That link will be there for most of the show. All right, Freddie, James, let us talk about just in general this sort of struggle we have with using metrics. There's no shortage of metrics that exist, but often we like to lean on vanity metrics. James, you made a comment also of bias towards them. So when we're thinking about usage of metrics, and we have a lot of them, how do we start leaning towards what is working so we can avoid vanity metrics? And by the way, please explain what vanity metrics are as well. Either one of you jump in. Freddie,
I can go
you go
first.
ahead. Yeah,
vanity metrics. The way I like to think is like it's a number that's good. It's so easy to pull, like it's right there in front of you, but they don't actually kind of tell you the story or the bottom line contribution to the company. The best way I can think of, like in terms of analogy, is let's say you have AC or you have heating in your house, like it's freaking cold in Austin today. So I set to 72 degrees. I don't care if the fan is running at 5,200 RPM or 55. A vanity metric sometimes is something like that. Like for the consumer, it's not telling what's important to them. In my case, it's like, am I at 72? Am I saving energy? Do I need to change the filter? It's telling something else. And the hardest part with vanity metrics is that they are so easy to collect. Like insecurity is not a well-integrated system that everything works tightly like my Nest thermostat. It's like hundreds of different security systems reporting things and collecting that in a meaningful way is kind of hard.
Okay. What about you, James? When you are starting this road of trying to understand what sort of you should build to sort of show the value of your security program, we're going to get more into that. How do you begin your process?
I mean, it's identifying what's important to the business and identifying what things you want to be measuring.
So let's get into define what that means too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot of things that you should do. I mean, the goal, I think, generally is let's not get got by attackers. So, how does that happen, right? You can use data sources like the Horizon Data Breach Report or the CIS Top 10. Those are great places to start picking things that you want to measure. So stuff like vulnerabilities with public exploits. That's a great one to measure. You should probably know about that. Human beings who don't use MFA. That's another good one to measure. How many phishing attacks you get, how many people are clicking on those phishing attacks. Those are also great metrics to show the business kind of the risk that exists to prevalent attack vectors. And then using that data, you can kind of target how you want to solve some of these problems.
Okay, a good point. All right. By the way, I want to remind people, please get questions in. Very, very important that we get your thoughts on this in terms of the questions, and we will address as many of those as we possibly can throughout the show. But please get your questions in. That would be fantastic. All right. Going back to my list, though, of questions, I've got plenty of them. Okay. Let me go back to an old classic question. And I don't know how often this is asked, but you often get the people who are not in security asking, are we secure? A very difficult question to answer, and it's very loaded as well. So I'm going to say that, when you get that question, how do you sort of approach it, Freddie? Because you don't say yes or no to that answer. How do you approach that question?
That's a great question, though. Damn, it's loaded. The way I
very
like to
loaded.
think is like.
By the way, I just want to set that up again with the question is, it's very hard to not stick your foot in a pile of poop when trying to answer that question. You really are working around a minefield of poop because you really could screw up on it. Okay, so that's why I understand how tough it is. So I want to hear your best effort on it.
Yeah, I guess a great analogy to translate into business lingo is something that actually Dr. X mentioned there in the channel. There's KPIs, KRIs, but also there are KCIs. But the way I'm going to frame what I mean by those in a second. But when I am explaining how safe we are, one great analogy I like to think is line of defense, right? Hey, we need to anticipate. We need to detect faster. We need to soften the blow if something is actually kind of going through or being exploited, and we need to get over these issues as fast as possible. So explaining this line of defenses and imagine a kind of a castle. I hate the castle analogy sometimes, but it's useful. Hey, our first line of defense looks like this. This is how we're prepared. The second's like that. The third is like this. The fourth is like that. Those are very, very cool and great ways of thinking about that. I saw someone mention KGIs, though I don't know about this one. Explain that to me. This is the first time I'm hearing KGIs.
KGI? What does the G stand for? Key something? KPI, key performance indicators. KR, key revenue indicators. KCIs? I don't know what all these letters mean. Help us out here. Key goal indicators. That's actually pretty cool. By the way, Aman, speak up on more of those. And please feel free if you'd like to come on camera. We'd love to hear more on just that. Are there key goal indicators, any of these K blank I or KXI, I guess, terms, James, that you use?
I mean, it all just depends on who you're talking to. And going kind of back to the root of your question, when people ask you, are we secure? Usually, people are asking that because they heard about something or they just have something that's top of mind. So I usually just sort of ask them, what do you mean by secure? What thing do you think we should be focusing on, or what thing are you talking about? And then once they kind of guide the conversation for you, then you can, be honest in your answer and help them understand what controls are in place, what controls might be missing or could require improvement. And that's how I avoid stepping in the poop.
All right. Well, you know what? And I know this one, and again, this is also a loaded question from Dr. X here, but he's asking what are your top 5 KPIs, key performance indicators, KRIs? I'm guessing key revenue, key risk indicators. Key risk indicators as well. So there are the general ones to look at, but as you said, what matters to the business. So please sort of answer them both ways if you like. Freddie, I'll let you jump in. And again, you don't need to give me 5, but just ones that you hear coming up again and again and again. And I will just start off with mean time to response has been a very popular one. What do you say?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to bring some that would be both very popular and also very interesting. So I'll start with KRIs. Key risk indicators. Think about like the things that are outside to the world, like these are the vulnerabilities or the threats. They are not necessarily explored, but you have that present in your environment, and therefore there's a risk or a likelihood that will be exploited, right? Risk scoring for that is amazing. Is the way we usually do with vulnerabilities. You have a scoring, but I really like when that scoring is married to not only the technical score, let's say CVS, CVSS, but also what you have in your environment. Like, hey, it's a CVSS, like it's a critical risk score into a machine that publicly exposed to the internet and can be exploited on the same port. Then you move to the middle, key control indicators. Think about this. You have the risk, but you have things in place to avoid that from being manifested. I have an EPP deployment coverage, like, hey, out of my entire device footprint, I have 99.95% coverage. And last but not least, like the key performance indicators is how well you're responding to those things. MTTR, you mentioned one of those, like mean time to respond, mean time to detect. Some of those could be very interesting. I mentioned here, I kind of sprayed around many of those, but of course, it varies by what you're protecting, how you're protecting. James mentioned one that's really cool, which is the MFA adoption or the MFA quality. Like you offer multiple MFAs, but how often people are using ones with phishing protection versus, let's say, SMS.
Okay. All right. So the let's go actually. I'm sorry. Key risk indicators. So let's go back to. I'm sorry, James. I want to hear your top 5 too. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted there. Your top 5 as well.
Well, not to go on, for a really long time, but a couple that I think are important, but they all sort of have nuances to them are like time to remediate vulnerabilities, average remediation time. But see, with all things, there is a lot of asterisks there. Security professionals aren't necessarily in control of that most oftentimes. So we really rely on the business, and also not all vulnerabilities are created equal, as you all know. So, time to remediate a low vulnerability, something with a CVSS score of, 1, 2, 3, matters way less than a vulnerability with a CVSS score of 10 with a public exploit. So, it's metrics. It's what are you trying to measure, and measuring the most important things to the business to make sure that you're doing well. Another indicator that we look at is unresolved alerts. I think
that's a good one.
Most businesses have lots of tools that are trying to tell you about lots of things that could potentially be bad. And like I always say, the tool is only as good as the person looking at it. And if no one's looking at it, then what good is it to you? So there's just a couple off the top.
How often are you changing your measurements? Like, my feeling is it's like one of the things you got to start with, and you got to kind of go with it, because if you just start changing, well, we're not measuring that anymore, we're measuring this, it's like the baseline is chronically shifting. I don't know if it's a set it and not forget it because you're constantly looking at it, but don't you kind of have to kind of stick to your metrics and not go, okay, we're no longer measuring that, we're doing this, like, because you need to show performance over time. Freddie, yes?
Yes. I a great analogy. And also, like, I mean, a lot of good work in metrics is copying from those who do metrics for longer, that are meaningful to the business and work well. So think about finance, right? Like if you invest in stock, you go and you attend a call, and what you want to hear from them is like performance compared to the previous quarter. Like if they flip the numbers, you're like, oh, something's fishy over here. They were measuring their performance by this metric, they changed. Is something wrong? So the same could be said about security. So sticking to metrics over time kind of reinforce the education, shows confidence, and also reduces the cognitive load. They already understand that metric the first time, let's say EPP coverage. Then it comes the second one, you do like, we did better, we did worse, and here's why. People are like locked in solutioning like in seconds, and that's gold. Of course, if the metric is wrong, you change it, but you do a graceful handoff, like to explain, hey, this is why it's not great, let's move to a better one.
I like this one from Dwayne Grant, who says, spend some time with sales and marketing and learn about the metrics that matter to them. You'll undoubtedly find some common ground where security can drive value. James, you're nodding your head. Have you actually done this? And can you speak to a metric that makes sales and marketing happy?
I mean, I'm not sure about a particular metric that makes sales and marketing happy, but
or maybe a conversation.
They're happy about anything that they can talk to a customer about that looks good, but not in a a vanity type of situation.
So can you just give me an example of like something that makes a customer feel good, look good? Like, we're handling this, we're managing this, we stopped this happening because of this. I don't know. Like how does that conversation go down?
I mean, usually, they'll look. A lot of these things come from kind of the sales and marketing people coming to you a lot of the time, right? A customer will have a question about a thing, they send out a questionnaire with a bunch of questions about your cybersecurity posture, and they'll come to you and say, I don't know what any of this means. What can you tell me about? And then, you can go and talk to them about things that are good or important. Or for example, say vulnerability scanning. I know I've kind of beat that one to death at this point, but if that's something that you do a really good job of and your metrics are really great for that particular indicator, then you can kind of tell the sales marketing people how to talk about it to people who maybe don't necessarily understand a lot of the jargon and things, but they can sell it as something that we do really well.
By the way, James Sparenberg brings up this, and I'm wondering if you've run into this very problem. Make sure you aren't introducing a security issue in order to get a metric that is popular to have. So, for example, mean time to respond or remediate, whichever way you want to say that, MTTR, that's a popular darn metric. Could measuring that cause a security issue? I mean, if not that, something else? Freddie, can you speak to that?
Yeah, let me try and unpack this one. Can you repeat it?
So the idea is fighting to find a metric that is popular, like MTTR, and you don't have to necessarily use that example, but does it cause you either to create a security issue by either keeping the eye off the ball, or you're not really adding things up correctly? I mean, I don't know if this happens. Maybe it doesn't happen, but you tell me. I mean, you kind of responded to it. Oh, and we need to get to our first game. If the answer is no, we'll just go to our first game. What do you say?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our first game. What are you going to say, James?
Oh, I was just going to say, a piece of cybersecurity that sometimes gets overlooked is availability. And if you're trying to improve a metric, like you just said, with the mean time to remediate, if you're trying to go really, really fast, there's a decent chance you're going to impact availability of a service or people's livelihoods or people's satisfaction.
Good example, James. All right, let's go to our first game.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
All right, our audience knows how to play this game. Whether you know how to play or not, you're going to find out right now. And here's how it's played. Most average monthly search queries, we want to know, what do you think? People search more. And again, it is just this single word. It's not detect something, respond to something. It's just detect or respond. Believe it or not, people type that into Google. It's not necessarily just security professionals, anyone typing in. What do you think? I haven't seen this, so I'm going to play along as well. I'm going to say detect. James, Freddie?
I'm going detect.
Yeah, detect.
Okay, all three of us are saying A. Let's see what the correct answer is. It's mixed. Rich Straffolino selected Q, which, by the way, he can't play because he actually created this game. Both of us. All three of us. A lot of B's in there. So like James Sparrenberg and Darren Alain? I don't know how to pronounce that last name. But they both selected B. All right, next one. Benchmark ROI score. I'm going to say score on this one.
I agree. Score.
Yeah, score. You can use that in sports.
Yeah, well, that's why.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing the ROI of the New England Patriots. Maybe the Mavs. I don't know. Like
I know, but then
something's
again, it's
happening
just
over there.
typing the word score in. That's the thing. Usually they score the basketball game, score this. But let's see if we're all, again, we were all wrong the last time. We're 0-0-0 across the board. How are we going to be this time? We did well. Good job, everyone. All right, we're all tied. One each. We only have two more to go here. All right. A few people answered, so I'm wondering if anyone's 2 for 2. All right. Click, dwell, mean. Ooh, this is a good one. All right, I'm going to personally strike out dwell because I don't think a lot of people know how to spell it. So that's my feeling. I'm going click. What do you think, James? Freddie?
I'm going with click as well. I see myself browsing click much more than the other ones.
What do you think?
I don't want to just be a bandwagoner, but I think I'm going click also.
All right. Well, look at this. This has never happened where we always pick the same one. We're going to find out. Is it click, dwell, or mean? And the correct answer is mean. Okay, we're doing very poorly, by the way. We're 1 for 3 right now. All right, let's see if we can at least get up to 50% here. All right. Average completion percentage or rate. And by the way, the reason for all the different letters is that there's always like a few second lag between the chat room and us. Ming Fu says 1. Hold on, we haven't gotten to the last one yet, Ming. All right, what do you think? I'm not gonna answer this one first. I've been doing that. Freddie, you answer first.
Yeah, I'll go first. How the percentage?
Percentage? What do you think, James?
I'm going to go average.
I think it's going to be either percentage or average. Although rate, because people are like looking up interest rates and rate this. I'm going
Does
rate.
Plura count?
Okay, we're all splitting. This, except unless it's completion, we will have a winner here. All right? Someone will be 2, possibly, or we could all be 1s. And the correct answer is
Hey.
average. Very, very good. James, you were the one who said average. Congratulations. He is the winner, getting a whopping 2. Now, the question is, did anyone go 4 for 4? Interested to know? Boo, said Dr. X. Boo. Was James? Who went? Anyone go down 2 for 4? Rich is so sweet. He called us all winners. That's nice. All right. Now, for those of you who are not clued into Axonius and what they do, they are an asset management, but a lot more than just asset management. That's how kind of they started, and they kind of extended even beyond that, but really explaining what's in your environment. But you very much play in the metric space, and I'm sure this asset management is key to that. So I want you to do a quick pitch right now, Freddie, explaining what Axonius is doing to our topic of finding metrics that matter. Give us a lowdown.
Of course. Thank you, David. And thank you all for being here today. So yeah, Axonius is a platform that provides visibility, insights, and actionability of everything that's touching your processes and data. And therefore, you need to see the state of them. You need to see how secure they are. You need to speak to the coverage. You need to speak to how well you're doing with the risks associated with these assets. We provide all of that in the same place. So gathering meaningful metrics that matter to your business becomes to be easy. So you don't need to gather those around many different places. You can convey those metrics in a way that makes sense to you. And last but not least, you can take action on those automatically with over 450 integrations. It works for your on-prem cloud systems, whether public or private, integrate seamlessly, no agents, no network tapping, and other ways that makes things harder. So, of course, it greatly simplifies that. Yeah, that's what we do in a nutshell.
It's pretty awesome. All right. With that being said, there's a reason Axonius has been on fire for quite some time. And by the way, one of our earliest sponsors, Axonius, and then they got heavily recognized at the Sandbox at RSA. And we, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Freddie, we took full credit for that, as we usually do when our sponsors are successful. If you would like a nice warm handoff to the people over at Axonius, I just put a poll up there. Go ahead and answer any one of those. Pretty much the answer is yes on either one. So just select that. Go ahead to our poll. Please click on it. We will do the nice warm introduction to the fine people over at Axonius. So you don't have to lift many fingers. Just the finger of click the poll. That's all you really have to do at this point. Oh, and let me remind you, next week's event is Hacking the Modern Audit. If you have not clicked for that and registered, this would be a great time to do that. Go ahead and do that. Do we have any questions? We don't have any questions here. Please get questions in. What is wrong with you people? But we do have bad ideas. But I do also like to mention that that we also have some good advice that's coming in here. And there was one from Dwayne. Oh yeah, I mentioned that the one about the sales and marketing. All right. Here's actually, let me highlight this one from Andrew Aiken here. It's actually Andrew, not Rich Straffolino. ROI on your security initiatives factoring in the monetary value of risk reduction. So, I mean, let's talk about metrics around risk. Are there good metrics to show risk management, risk reduction, anything like that? What have you seen, either one of you, pipe up? And then, Freddie, you were nodding your head first. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are some frameworks that help greatly with that. One is called FAIR. And that framework helps you kind of provide monetary association with the work you're doing in security. Also, there are some frameworks like the bow tie analysis. We talked a little bit about this. Mr. X brought like the KRIs, the KPIs, also the KCIs. So that also helps you frame like how your work is translating into ROI. Mm-hmm. Also, there's a great work from Gartner that they do with PLAs and stakeholder defensibility too. So one of the very important things with ROI is that many times it's not only manifested in dollars or time and things that you're saving, but also the risk to the reputation of a company or the reputation of your company leaders. So we all work in security. We know there's no such thing as 100% secure except for not doing anything. Like, hey, let's not have the system. 100%.
By the way, hold it. Aman Sood asked this question because you just mentioned it. Have you, because this is what you do asset coverage and asset management. Have you ever seen an environment that has 100% asset coverage visibility? He said, I've not. Do you want to, what does Axonius say to that?
Yeah. First thing, I work in security, and I will never say there's 100% guarantee of everything. So It will be a burn to my reputation, to everybody's reputation, including my company. Having that said, though, Axonius take a very interesting approach towards asset visibility, which is investigative jobs. So we connect to all your systems, and we ask them, like, even if that system is not intended to do a job, we say, hey, what are the assets you're seeing? Perfect example, Zoom. Like, I have a lot of people using Zoom to do meetings. So you install Zoom in a phone that is considered BYOD. So you use Zoom, and we ask Zoom through the APIs, hey, are you seeing any assets over there? And they say, yeah, I'm seeing this phone. And right then and there, you found BYOD. So that helps a lot with the coverage. Percentage-wise, we get customers claiming 99%, 98%. Some are more bullish and say 100%. But of course, I won't be telling you 100%. I know this is
absolutes. Anything in security is not a good path to go, right, James? Exactly. Claiming absolutes. Yeah, it's nothing like that. Let me ask you, Andrew Aiken kind of goes, and I don't know if I agree with them. There's a dollar value associated with reputation. And the reason it makes sense, by the way, but evidence shows, and evidence when I refer to like the Verizon data breach investigation report, that public companies, and I can't speak for all companies, but public companies, when they get popped, they do have a dip, but their stock always jumps back. And I mean, it kind of seems consistent here. So, I mean, you know, no company is going to say, so I won't put you on the spot here, James, but no company is going to say, well, we don't worry about reputation from getting hacked because the history shows that, all companies can bounce back. But I don't know if that's something you need to concern yourself about. It's really just money to concern of keeping business running well, James. Yes? I mean, that's really what you need to focus on.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. However, I think it's more of a big deal for smaller companies, startups in particular, especially now when there's third-party risk management. It seems like everyone who's buying a service or a piece of software or whatever, they all have a questionnaire they want answered. They're always comparing you to others in terms of cybersecurity. And if you have blemishes on your record, that's not going to look good for you,
Right.
and that could potentially cost you sales.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, and I think that makes a good point, is that when you're not a public company and you can kind of weather the storm of that, if you're a small company and there's an alternative that I can literally hop over to there, why not? And then also we also talk about the reputational management beyond that. All right. By the way, Dwayne is here. I'll highlight the quote because he's speaking glowingly of Axonius right here. It's only the portion, but I have had some hands-on keyboard experience with Axonius, and I can say that it is quite brilliant. And it integrates and deduplicates asset data from various sources. It is the only system I've seen where you can throw more data at the problem and get more clarity. I will lean into that question and ask you about that. How do you throw more data and get more clarity rather than it become more noisy, Freddie? Because that's usually what happens.
It's a little bit to what Dwayne said. When we bring that data inside the system, there's an engine that does the aggregation, the deduplication, the correlation. So it presents all in the same pace and in the same page. So imagine like we talked about Zoom, right? Let's say it's a good machine. It has Zoom, it has CrowdStrike, but for some reason, actually not that good. Maybe it's missing ServiceNow. So when it comes, it tells you, hey, here, like I talked to Zoom, I talked to CrowdStrike. This machine, in fact, exists, but for some reason, this is not there, the ServiceNow part. So your CMDB. So because it does all that job of like correlating everything for you in the same place, it makes the work a breeze. So when you see like 1,000 devices, these are really 1,000 devices.
Okay. All right. Let's if you're do we have more questions? No. Let me go to my questions for a second. And by the way, we are just a few minutes away also from playing our next game too for that. What frameworks do you find valuable in helping build out your metrics, James?
I think the NIST Special Publication 800-55 is it's a good one in the sense that it is sort of intentionally vague. I kind of look at it as the scientific method for cybersecurity metrics, and I think that's a great place to start. I think if you're prescribing certain numbers or indicators for any business, I think that might not be such a great idea because every business has kind of different risk tolerance. So I kind of like the vagueness of that special publication, and it just helps steer you into developing your own metrics in your own program.
All right. The obvious reason we do metrics is to see if our program's working well, what we need to tweak and things like that. Maybe, I don't want to talk about this grandiose, and I'm going to ask you again, James. Is there a metric, and just show one example, like we use this metric to let us know to do more of this or less of that? Give us an example.
Let's see. I know I've talked about vulnerability management quite a bit, but I'm gonna lean on it again just because it's a quantifiable, thing. But we every day we look at the current state of the vulnerabilities in our environment, just every day, and we look at those risk trends to see, are we doing a good job in particular areas of the business? Are we not doing as well in other areas of the business? And that helps guide us in making some decisions about, well, maybe we should go talk to those people and, see what's going on. Or maybe there's, maybe something is going on with their patch management solution, right? So if we see different trends in one way or the other, we can kind of, get a sense that something may not be quite as healthy as we want. So that helps guide us.
Freddie, you want to give us an example? It could be vulnerability management, another angle or something else. Just what, you track something and then the number tells you what to the action to take. Because, I mean, honestly, that's the point of this. It's telling us how to right size the ship all the time. So give us an example.
Yeah. James already mentioned a great one. I like coverage states as a great example as well. Like by the end of the day, we get security controls that we need to deploy in systems, and we need to make sure that those are right place. Mm-hmm. And like looking at the evolution of those over time can tell you a lot of like how these controls are being put and how well they are performing over time. Even in the most interesting part is that some of these controls, they're not only about the presence of them, but how well they are operating. So great example, we were talking about vulnerability management, our vulnerability scanners. One thing is having the scanner present, is the other is how often we are getting the scanner running and how effectively that's going, and if the plugins are updated. So some of these metrics help you understand that story and really move in the direction. Maybe it's not about doing something specific to increase, but increase the efficacy. So instead of increasing the deployment. So this is one example of metrics. Also, there's one thing important to say, that when you collect all these metrics, let's say you have a full suite, it tells you, remember to that story, like before, anticipate, withstand, reduce, react well. It will tell you like where to go outside of all these metrics. Because sometimes, like, let's imagine the dream scenario, you're doing well in all these areas, but I mean, you have the team and you have the attention. Why not continue improving on this area that's like 91%? Let's go 92. So the whole collection also makes a big deal on that decision.
What is it here? I had this question. It was all loaded here. Here's the thing that it's come up many times, and I'm surprised I've waited this long to ask this, but we often hear we need metrics to tell a story. We need metrics to tell our story. I'm going to leave this open-ended and coming back to you, James, on this one. So this is different about the metric to tell us what to do next. What is the metric then? And maybe we can come back to the are we secure question of what is stories you can start telling with metrics, and what have you done in the past, James?
Stories you can tell with metrics. I think, a decent example is phishing, and how we are protecting user accounts against phishing. It's no secret that phishing and password compromise is one of the most, if not the most prevalent ways of a breach starting. So, using metrics to help identify how vulnerable are we to this particular threat? Using that can help you tell a story. You have those metrics about how your employees are doing against this particular type of threat, coupled with, here's the controls that we have in place, and are the controls that we have in place, good enough compared to what the potential risk is. And this is something that we, really did grapple with, and that helped us go from just, MFA as, push notifications to phishing resistant FIDO2 keys. This is the way. We found that our risk to that particular attack, phishing or password compromise, was just too high. And so, we use that to tell the story of, here's where we've been, and here's how the threat landscape has changed over time, and here is how we are going to evolve to meet that.
And by the way, you bring up a good point there about telling the story, because they need that. And when I say they, I'm talking about the people who are sort of controlling the budget at this time and also leading the business, to understand the gravity of making a decision based on what could possibly happen, given, everything else would be for naught if we don't make a decision around this. I mean, isn't that kind of the tale you're trying to tell, James?
Yeah, absolutely, and
So it's often forcing decisions to be made.
yeah, oh yeah. I think you're one of the guests on your last show, was talking about how communication with executives is just so important, and sometimes it's an overlooked thing. Um, we have to be able to describe and portray how great a risk is, or how small a risk is, and then help them understand, here's what you need to do in order to adequately protect us against this thing, and here's what could happen if you don't, and the business is ultimately going to decide, and that's fine, but we have to do a good job of making sure that people understand the decisions that they're making.
All right. You know what? I think it's time for our phone call. Just came in.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right. These are some really good, horrible, bad ideas. And I want to just say kudos to the community for coming up with these. I'm going to start with Dwayne Grant's one. Let me see if I think I can post it right here. So this is from Dwayne. It says, post all of your risk register open issues on social media and track engagement from a public and hackers as a vital metric. So how people respond to these risks. If it matters to them, it matters to you. Freddie, you are nodding your head. Explain why you want to do this incredibly stupid idea that Dwayne suggested.
I mean, it's popular vote. Like, there's hard evidence here. We're not flying by vanity here.
All right.
This is an amazing
I'm going to
bad
do a
idea.
small
I
one,
love
but
this one.
you got to work harder on this one. All right. I'm throwing this one to you, James. You're going to have to do a little bit better on this one. Why do you want to do this? There is some value to this.
I guess you're crowdsourcing solutions, and you're looking at your risk register, and they're prioritizing it for you, I suppose.
They're prioritizing it for you. I like that. All right, let's go to the next one. And I like this one too. This one comes from Aman Sood. You should be able to handle this way. Fabricate a metric to secure more budget and headcount. No one will know. Okay, James, I'm starting with you. This one I think you can handle. Yes.
I mean, you get to have more resources for your security program.
Which metric would you fabricate to get the budget you need?
Ooh.
And by the way, we will pull this clip out and use it out of context, whatever you say. So go ahead.
Oh, no pressure.
Perfect. I would fabricate. I would probably inflate the number of failed login attempts on an executive.
I like that.
Not that it needs much inflating, but there you go.
Yeah, that's good. All right. I like it. All right, Freddie, I'm going to let you close this one out. First of all, why do you want to do this? And second, what is the metric you're going to fabricate?
Yeah. I mean, James nailed on the head. It's more budget. We can do a better work with more budget. It's always good. I like what you said, James. I would bump a level up. I would increase the number of emails from the CISO asking for some gift cards, because that one's funny.
Oh, increasing for the gift cards. I like that. Okay.
Sir, yes, sir.
All right. Good job, everyone. You can still get bad ideas in, because, by the way, here, I'm wearing this. A really good bad idea could win one of these awesome CISO Series fleeces. I do not select the winners. What we do is we put it up against a panel of CISOs, and they determine who has the best bad idea. So please go ahead, continue to submit your bad ideas, because we'll pick them out. Also, I want to remind you, please go to the poll. Go to the poll. I know a lot of you know Axonius, and I know a lot of you have chatted with Axonius, but when's the last time you chatted with them and you would like to understand what they're doing today? Because they evolve pretty darn quickly. So if you would like that warm handoff, go to the poll. We will make that happen. And also, click the link at the bottom of the screen to register for next week's event. All right. So, here, I had the questions out, and this was the question I want to ask. No, well, I mean, I'm assuming Axonius is an answer to this, but please answer other things. What tools do you use for your InfoSec metrics? Do you use qualitative or quantitative? I'm assuming quantitative. Throw it out from Dr. X. James, I'll start with you.
We have a vulnerability scanning and vulnerability management solution, which quantifies lots of vulnerabilities in the environment and what our exposure is. We have other tools like we're Axonius customers that helps us quantify any assets that are in a bad state, be it missing an agent or don't have a defined owner in the organization. We have a SIM to quantify various types of logs or anomalies that are happening in the environment. I think those are just a few.
By the way, one question that came up, and I'm going to throw this also out to the audience as well. We come up with this subject of metrics. I don't feel other departments have this sort of struggle with metrics like cybersecurity does. Like finance, pretty simple metrics in accounting, same thing, simple metrics. Even human resources have simple metrics. In fact, they have whole systems to measure performance of employees. Why is this such a complicated discussion for security? What do you think, Freddie?
There are a few reasons. I guess the first one that comes to my mind is that security is growing into the board instead of being the board day one, right? You're starting a company. One of the things you want to make sure day one is that like you're selling. So therefore, like there's a strong culture of like surfacing KPIs and results to people from different departments that need to get the gist of it and need to make decisions of like whether we want to invest more in sales or in marketing or in finance or in security. That's one. The second one is that like many of these departments, they build a culture of having anchor systems in which they can really see telemetry pretty well. So you talk to someone in finance, they will say, hey, it's everything in my ERP, in my accounting system by the end of the day. You talk to someone in sales, they will say it's in my CRM and in Salesforce, and all the other systems are contributing to that, and so on and so forth. So that greatly simplifies how all the metrics are generated over time.
Okay, awesome. What about you? What do you say to this, James, about the difficulty that security just has with it? The fact that we're even having this discussion. Like, I couldn't imagine finance of, let's talk about metrics. I'm like, are we making money or not? Spending more or earning more? Like, what's happening? That's. I mean, it seems like it's literally one line. That's it. I mean, I'm being hyper simplistic here, but there is no one line in security. So why are we even having this discussion?
Why are we having this discussion? I mean, we're having this discussion because there's so many different ways that cybersecurity affects the business, and it's hard. It's very difficult for executives to be able to make sense of a lot of the data that we see, and at a fairly simple term, cybersecurity as a function just hasn't existed for as long as a lot of these other areas of the business. So they've developed all these, ways to present themselves and to measure themselves and things over a much longer period of time. And we're just, companies are still trying to grapple with the very basics of cybersecurity, let alone.
And also, I should mention, maybe you can give an example. What you're measuring today as compared to 5 years ago, I'm sure that has shifted. Yes? Can you mention a thing that you're measuring more today than you did 5 years ago?
I mean, everything.
No, but I mean like categories, like shifting categories. I mean, is there one example you can give?
Yeah, I mean, for example, 5 years ago, I don't think there was vulnerability scanning 5 years ago. I also don't think there was simulated phishing 5 years ago. So I mean, it's almost everything that we measure, we're doing better now than we were 5 years ago. I don't think there's a single thing we haven't improved.
Well, that's good to know as well. Here, there was a question that here came in.
Actually, can I say something very interesting that's coming up both in the chat and in this conversation? I love one of the examples you brought, which is human resources, right? HR department. So like that, there are many ways you convey value to the business and impact the business. And financial, while extremely important, don't get me wrong, like showing a financial monetary value is important and you should be pursuing that in security. Many times it's not necessarily a requirement to convey the value of something to an organization. So we're talking about HR, right? Attrition rate is a big problem that the C-suite and the board cares deeply about. It's fairly hard to quantify the impact of like an attrition rate of an employee that you love and made a huge contribution to the company, but everybody gets it by how that materially changes their lives. So a lot of the metrics that goes in creating a great culture of metrics, not only by looking at the financial, of course, they should be looked at, but also conveying the stories. And it goes back to storytelling on how that changes dramatically the course of the organization.
All right. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna come back to you. We're gonna wrap this up. By the way, if you have not clicked the link at the bottom of the screen to register for next week, go ahead and do that now because that link is going to change very, very soon. Also, if you have not gone to the poll and clicked that as well, please go that, and so we can give you a nice warm handoff. Wouldn't you like the nice people at CISO Series to connect you to the nice people at Axonius? That's what we'll do for you. And speaking of Axonius, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of the CISO Series. We greatly appreciate it as well. Thank you for being a great sponsor. And also one of the earliest sponsors of the CISO Series. Again, we take 100% credit. That is an absolute 100% credit for your recognition in the industry. We do that. And by the way, do not argue with me on that topic. Starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, which is about 100 minutes from now, we'll be doing our Cybersecurity Headlines Weekend Review show with TC Niedzikowski, who is now a former CISO, but he's going to be back doing CISO somewhere else. But TC's great. He's a good friend of the show. We love having him on. Essentially, it'll be Rich Stroffolino hosting the show, talking to TC about probably the 6 biggest stories in cybersecurity this week. Always great to catch up. Pretty much. And also, if you're not listening to in your podcast feed, that you can join live and you can actually participate live, kind of like this. But we do it all over on YouTube. So just you can just go to CISOseries.com, see the link, or go to youtube.com/CISOseries and join us there as well. There's ways to make reminders. Hey! Now, let's change that to the bottom. Look at that, how fast Aaron is on it. Thank you so much, Aaron. Join us on Discord. You can click on that link and join us on Discord. That's what it'll kind of look like with everybody in there smiling. The lower left-hand corner there is where all your sort of buttons for managing your audio and video. So you can go ahead there. We will have our meetup. If you have not joined us for our meetup, especially someone who hasn't been around for a while, like Bryn, hasn't been with us, so come join us at the meetup at the end of the show. We would love to see you as well. Okay, so we have 7 minutes left, and let's get to the question I usually ask at the end is, thank you very much. I got a reminder. There is Freddie and I did a demo with Dave thing. What that is called is that Freddie shows me Axonius or whatever cool thing with Axonius. We did a nice overview, and it is available now, but we will also make it available in our newsletter. If you are not on, by the way, you might have joined the old newsletter though, it's via my personal account, but you join the newsletter on the CISO Series page on LinkedIn, you will get that. But look at that. The CISO Series producer, Aaron, just dropped the link in there, and you could see a nice 10-minute demo of Freddie showing me Axonius. So if you'd like to get a nice overview of it and a nice warm handoff, click the old poll there, and also click on the YouTube link. But also, Rough David Bryn says, I don't know what that means. Please check out the newsletter. The video, the demo will be embedded in that as well. All right. So here's my question to you with the last 6 minutes we got left. Freddie, what have we not brought up on metrics that we should have talked about?
That's a great question, though.
By the way, James, I'm asking you the same one, so have your answer locked and loaded. Go ahead, Freddie.
Yeah. Couple of things. The first one is we in security, we're dealing with a lot of pressure, right? Like whenever something goes wrong, the first one to be on the spot is you. And a lot of those is because of metrics. And there's an area which is expectation setting in management of that. So we go to the board, we tell them, hey, to do good security, we need this kind of budgeting. And sometimes that won't happen. And then there's a breach or there's an incident, and all that memory from the past gets vanished, even though you did the job you're supposed to do. So metrics do a great job of actually reducing your stress when these situations occur, and also reduce the stress of your upper management as well. Because if you did your job well, you're going to have stakeholder defensibility, it's called, which is like other companies, they do this level of security. We did more, and even so, we got breached. So that's an accepted risk. So communicating that well with metrics make a big difference in the quality of life of your entire team.
Okay. Very
I'll leave
very
it
good
there.
point. I like it. James, what have we not discussed that we
Yeah,
should have been discussing?
I can't not mention automation. I saw Andrew in the chat mentioned security orchestration automation and response. That's a metric that we haven't really talked about, but time saved for security teams via automation. I think that's a big one. And another one that's near and dear to me is customer satisfaction. I think as cybersecurity professionals, we tend to sort of think that we deal with systems and infrastructure, and if a bolt can be tightened more, it should be tightened more. But we're also in the people business, and
Right.
there's people's livelihoods who depend on us to a certain degree. And,
That, by the way, this becomes a very sort of fuzzy metric to measure. Like you put a good. If the bolts can be tightened more, we want to do that. But then, if we tighten it more, it may restrict people from doing the business, and that often you can't measure that, can you, James?
Well, I mean, I don't have a perfect, set of data points to be able to figure that out. But I just talk to a lot of people. I talk to people and ask them, what is your opinion of our cybersecurity program? What do you think we could be doing better? What do you think we're doing well at? And just get a sense from the people how you're doing and how you can focus your efforts.
Marco Castilla just spoke to this and got lots of kudos from the community. Consider your audience when presenting metrics. I bet you this is the definer of vanity metrics. They're things that make you look great, and the things the audience cares about, right? I mean, that pretty much comes down to vanity metrics. I want to look good, right?
Yeah.
But by the way, all right, be honest here, James, do you throw in vanity metrics just to make yourself look good every now and then? Yes.
No.
You don't? Seriously?
No.
Come on, seriously.
I don't think I've ever thrown in a vanity metric just for the sake of reasons.
Looking good.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Freddie, you want to be honest?
I do at home, man. Financial management and all that good stuff here, running the bills and all. So I do some of that at home to make sure like things are good until I cover things. But yeah, vanity metrics, they are tricky because sometimes even unintentionally you start leaning on those. So it's hard. So that makes like that very, very challenging to not use them even by accident sometimes.
Yeah. It can be understood. All right. We are coming to the end of the show. So let me wrap things up. I got to thank you, Freddie and James, for supporting us. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And also the community. I greatly appreciate your support for us as well. All right. We got a bunch of you still in there as well. What I want you to do is click the link at the bottom of the screen to join us on Discord for our post-event meetup. Please come. Please join us. We'd love to see you there. We can continue this conversation talking about metrics. We can talk about anything else that's been happening to you this week. And here's the great thing that you can use for this. If you've had something you've been struggling with and you'd like input from the community, discuss it over on Discord. That'd be great. Thank you, James. Thank you, Freddie. Thank you to our audience. Thank you to my producers. That would be Rich Straffolino and Aaron Diaz as well. And I don't know if and Josh is our new production assistant. Join us. And Andrew, I don't know where the heck he is, but hopefully he's been watching and participating in all this as well. Thank you, everybody. And also, we appreciate all the people who are coming back to join Super Cyber Friday. We want to see you again next week and all available weeks. Remember, we got an events page on our site where you can see all our upcoming events in person and virtual for that matter. All right, that's the end of the show. Thank you, Freddie.